I've invested over $100,000 in business coaching and mentorship. And in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you one thing I learned that might actually help save you money down the road. Now, to give you some context, the very first investment I ever did was, and I probably shouldn't be sharing this on the internet, but the very first time I bought Bitcoin was actually because I had this guy in my Instagram DMs that was promising that he had access to this business coaching program that was really interesting. So he was in my DMs, he was like, yo, Leon, I got this, $50 in Bitcoin and I'll give you access to it. So as a 20-year-old university student, the prospect of having access to a $1,000 course for $50 was worth the gamble. And I remember I bought Bitcoin, created my first Coinbase account, that was in 2017. And to my surprise, I ended up receiving that course. And although it took me another 4 years of business and entrepreneurship and trying new things and failing and trying and failing again, to get to the point where I was making enough money to sustain my lifestyle, where I was actually profitable in business. But this right here became my first exposure to business coaching. It became my first exposure to internet marketing content that was paywall gated. And since that moment, I've invested over 6 figures today. And gradually over time, I started making investments that were yielding better return on investment. And that wasn't because I would buy into better programs, but because I knew how to invest in better programs. And that's what I'm going to be sharing with you today. And I actually even have a formula that I use to dictate whether I should be making this investment or not. But before I do, I always like to be transparent. I'm transparent with business, how it's going. And I also want to be transparent in terms of, is this guy really, did he actually invest this money? So I just want to break down where I've put my investments, just for complete transparency. Transparency is my first policy. So here are my top investments in terms of size. I've put $35,000 at acquisition.com. First time was $5,000 at the scaling workshop. Second time was the value accrual method, which is the second program that they have. It was $25K plus $5K to bring my business partner. I've invested $30,000 in a recent program. It's a content coaching program. It's called Viral Coach, and it's a 6-month program for $30,000. That was this year. Earlier this year, I invested $5,000 in this operation coaching program to help us organize our ops at the team. I've invested in the last year and a half-ish a little bit over $2,500, closer to $3,000 on a voice coach. So I've had voice lessons. English is actually my third language. So over the years of learning English, I've picked up bad habits that have been affecting my speech clarity, which is why I wanted to get rid of those, and I worked with a speech coach. I've invested $5,000 in 2023 on this program called Ethical Scaling. It was a program about customer fulfillment, keeping your clients happy, increasing retention and lifetime value. I've invested $12,000 in my sales coach mentor who mentored me and my team. So I worked with them for close to 9 months. That was $12,000. $5,000 in late 2022. That was a course called Executive Advantage. It was a course about client acquisition. $1,000 on a public speaking course by Vin Jiang, and couple other hundreds of dollars and maybe a couple $1,000 here and there on these other courses. But total, the whole thing up, we are around the 6-figure mark. Now that I've mentioned this, here's the important thing that I've learned over the years and the reason why I've gotten better at allocating my resources. And my hope is that you learn this without having to pay the price of learning this. Now, here's what I learned over the years, getting better at investing my money and incur the cost of learning this, because out of these investments, we're probably a couple $1,000s wasted here and there. But there's this thing in business called the theory of constraint, which says that at any point of time in your business, there's one constraint and one constraint only, that if that is overcome, will move your business to the next level. The business is like building a building where you have all these floors, and the only way to get up is you have to make a hole on that floor to get to the next level. When you're just getting started, you first need a product. That is the first constraint. How do I make a product that is sellable, that people will deem valuable? Next, once you have the product or the product idea, the next constraint is, how do I sell this? Then it's like, how do I replicate this? How do I market this? These are all constraints that will grow with your business. Like even for me, for example, some of the constraints that I've tried to overcome with these investments were I was the only rainmaker at the business at some point. I was the only person driving revenue for the business. And I was stuck in that position and I couldn't focus on other stuff. So for me, it was, okay, how do I build a sales team? How do I remove myself from the acquisition? And that's where my constraint was building a sales team and being able to train a sales team. Once I built a sales team and I was getting more clients, the next constraint became delivery. How do we deliver to so many clients without breaking the systems and creating consistency and experience? That's where we brought in these coaches and mentors that helped us with the company organization, the structure and the flow of information. Another constraint is once you have more people, you realize, it's very interesting, you realize that business becomes just managing people. You stop managing things and you start managing people. At Unfungible, we're currently, as of this month, we're at 21 people at Unfungible, so we're growing. And you get to the point where you're just managing people. There's this underperformer, how do we motivate them? There's this person, how do we keep the standards high within the team? There's this person that is trying to learn and I'm trying to grow them. How do I make sure that they're growing without giving them the solution to their problem, but still have them perform and not break things? There's all these things that you have to start learning. So business is an ever-growing constraints. And imagine that you had, at every step of the way, you had this one Joker card in your back pocket that you can just pull out, and this Joker card would be a card that you can play that would help you overcome this constraint that you have in front of you. Well, my friend, you currently have this card that is currently in your back pocket, and that card is investing in knowledge, mentorship, and coaching. There is someone out there that has overcome the exact bottleneck or challenge that you are currently facing. And the earlier you are in your business journey, the broader these problems are. But the more you grow, the more specific they become. For example, when you're still starting off, you don't need more than a YouTube video that says how to start a business. But imagine you're a crypto marketing agency that is stuck at 300,000 per year and are trying to grow to 2 million per year. That's a lot more specific. And you can't just go on YouTube to find the solution to this. So there is someone out there that is going to be able to help you overcome this. And that's why oftentimes the more you grow, the more you're willing to spend, because you're starting to find these more specific people or solutions to your problem. But that's the thing with personal development, mentorship, and coaching. There's someone out there that you can call upon to help you overcome the challenges that you're facing. And over time, one of the things I've gotten better at is actually identifying what the constraint of my business is and then finding the right solution to that. So at the beginning stages of business, you're doing everything and anything. You think that your constraint is that your website looks ugly, but it's actually because your social media is not performing, or because your product, no one cares about it. So you might think that this is your constraint, but in reality, it's that other thing. So over time, you get better at learning what is that constraint that you have, that if that's solved and that alone will help you go to the next level. And number two, you get better at identifying who are the coaches that will help you do this. One of the ways is through experience. You start knowing, okay, like, is this really the thing that I need right now? Is this person qualified to do it? And over time, you start building a network of people that you can call upon to help you, or that know someone that does. For example, having been in business for a while, I have these friends that are also in business. Not all of them are in Web3, a lot of them are in Web2. And if I need help with my sales automations right now, I know who to text that will refer me someone. And that's a beautiful thing of why I don't shy away from always investing in personal growth, because if I try hard enough, I will figure it out. But trying hard enough and figuring out on yourself, on your own, will take time and will cost money. There's an opportunity cost. And that's where I want to introduce you to the formula that I've created. It's a back of the napkin formula that I use when trying to make investment decisions, if this is the right thing, if this is the right time, and if this is the right price. So as an engineer, I always revert to finding formulas that can help turn the complex into the simple. In an ideal world, every problem that would ever exist would have a yes-no solution. But this formula is not perfect, but it is a good guiding lens. And here's what the formula is. Just like in any formula, you have variables, and your goal is to plug in these variables. The formula that I have for you is delta times C times T minus I. So delta is the difference between the current state and the ideal state. So let's say you are making $10,000 per month and you want to get to $30,000 per month. The delta is 20,000. That's the delta. C is the confidence rate of the program that you're currently looking at will help you close the delta. And here's the rule of thumb. Don't assume the confidence rate. I'm actually going to give it to you. If you are new to business 1 year or below, your confidence rate will be 10%. If you are 1 year to 3 years, your confidence rate will be 20%. 3 years plus 30%. I don't use more than 30% in confidence rate. The reason why is when you're still new in business, you might be given the secret to making $1 million. Oftentimes the secret is on YouTube, free on content, just like I'm sharing right now, but you don't have the knowledge, the experience, the wisdom to know how to apply that, which is why I will stick to like a 5 to 10% confidence rate in the early stages of business. 1 to 3 years, you're a bit better. 3 years plus, you've spent over 1,000 days doing business. I would put a 30% confidence rate on your investment. T is the time saved that this investment might bring to you. And that's an assumption, but let's say you want to go from 10,000 to 30,000. I'll probably, if I spend a year on this, I'll probably figure it out. But this investment that I have might help me get there in 6 months, which is still big time. It's a lot of time to go from 20 to 30. However, let's be conservative and say this will help us in 6 months. So the T is 6 months because it saved us 6 months of time. So 12 months of me figuring it out versus 6 months of the program helping me. The difference is 6 months. That's T. Minus I, which is the investment cost. So what is the current program that I'm looking at? What is that going to cost me? So let's say we make the math. Delta is 20,000 times 0.2. Let's say you're that 1 to 3 times 0.2 times 6 minus, let's say the program is worth $10,000. Minus 10,000. So the final number becomes $14,000. So your return on investment with this solution will average of $14,000 per month for the year it will take you to figure out. And this is not assuming the compounding. After 6 months of you implementing this, you will start compounding towards the next ceiling. But this is not assuming this. The return on investment will be $14,000. So it makes sense. This is an investment that makes sense. Now let's take a more conservative example. Let's say you're making $0 and you want to get to your first $10,000 per month. And that's where, by the way, experience comes in, will help you have reasonable targets. Because that's why also the confidence rate, it also assumes that you don't know what are the good targets. If you're making 0 and you want to make $1 million, it doesn't make sense. To make 0, you first have to make 10K. And you understand in business, once you're in the game, you understand what are the big chapters. Like for me, for Unfungible, 0 to 10K per month, super hard. 10K to 50K is another big chapter. 50K to 150, big chunk. 150 to 300, and then 300 to 500, 500 to $1 million. These are the big chunks that I would use in terms of what is my target. Because it can't make sense for me to say, yeah, this investment is going to help me make $1 million. No, your goal is to break to the next ceiling right there. So let's say you're making 0 and your goal is to make $10,000. So $10,000 per month, and you're new to the game, which is 0.1. How much time will it actually take you to do this? It could probably take you about 16 months to do this. But if you join this program, you could be making this within the first 6 months. So times 12, for example. But the program costs $20,000 to be part of it. So let's do the math on this one. So 10,000 times 0.1 times 12 minus $20,000. That's a minus $8,000. So at this stage of your business, perhaps a $20,000 is not reasonable. What if you were to find a $10,000 program? Then the return on investment would become $2,000. Is $2,000 enough for this risk? Perhaps not, because there still is the risk factor that comes in. So at this stage, we're probably looking at your stage, if you're someone that's making 0 and wants to get to 10K, a good investment would probably be something around $1,000 to $2,000. That's what a good investment would start looking like. And what's most interesting is the more you grow in business, the bigger the delta becomes and the higher the confidence rate is. Like for example, for Unfungible, we're on track to do 2 million this year, which is close to $175 K per month on average. For me, the delta is a lot bigger and the confidence rate is bigger. So I have the ability to do these bigger bets. And here's the final thing that I'm gonna share with you. The beautiful thing about investing in your growth is that it's not discriminatory. You can find something at every stage of your business that you're at, whether you're still starting or whether you are a multimillionaire that is trying to triple his net worth. There's a program for everyone. All you have to do is just budget enough for these things. I'll give you the example of a very good friend of mine. His name is Joey. We've known each other for the last 3 years and we've seen each other grow our business from $10,000 to where it is today. We're kind of in the same category. And one of the things that stood out with him is he once asked me, we were having coffee together and he asked me, he was like, Leon, I have $5,000 to invest this month. Do you have any recommendations? I look at him, I'm like, bro, you have $5,000 to invest? He's like, yeah, man, we put aside $5,000 per month that we have to invest in coaching and mentorship, my business partner and I. I'm like, interesting. That's an interesting way of doing it. And he's like, yeah, man, we try to keep growing this every single month. So we started a couple years ago, we were like putting $200 aside every month. And then we grew that. And I thought that was a great idea. It was a great initiative. And obviously, like if you don't need to invest, don't invest it, but stack it. And that doesn't mean that every month he has to buy, but that means putting money aside because then you have the ability after, saving for 10 months, you have the ability to do this $50,000 investment that could change the business. But yeah, just putting aside, having an investment fund for personal growth, that's a beautiful thing. And no matter which stage of your journey you're at, I'm sure there's a little bit of money that you can put aside. Going back to my personal journey, the very first investment that I've made was $50 in Bitcoin. And back then, I would stick to just reading books and watching online videos. And over time, I started to be able to, put $200 to have a one-on-one call with this guy, put $1,000 on this course, put $2,000, and then start being able to invest $5,000. And if 3 years ago you told me that, Leon, you'll be buying $3,000 investments, I would not have believed you. But I'm sure that in a couple of years, the ticket sizes I'm going to be putting are going to be unfathomable for who I am right now today. I hope this at least inspires you to start thinking of personal growth as that joker card that you can pull out whenever in doubt, whenever in challenge, and for you to also inspire you to have a reserve, a treasury, an SME 500, as Alex Hermosi says. Everyone wants to invest in the S&P, but no one wants to invest in the SME 500. So start putting money aside to invest in the SME 500 and watch your life grow and change from here. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Leon Aboud. It was a pleasure sharing this time together. I will see you in the very next video. Have a good one. Bye-bye.